Hello, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in. Mike Berger with NC Planning, bringing you another daily counsel video in our sessions of sit downs with other folks out in the B2B space. I am really excited and pleased to be joined by a good friend of mine, Kathleen O'Grady with Raleigh Coaching and the Raleigh Coaching Academy. Kathleen, welcome. Thank you for taking some time today.
Oh, thank you, Michael. It's an honor and a privilege.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. I mean, honor's all mine, really. But with these daily counsel updates, it's us as our team at NC Planning, just kind of sharing some value in the space, be it on the estate planning side with my partner Lauren, or business and corporate with me and my team. We like to just add some value for business owners who might be experiencing some questions in different stages of their business operations. And so to have somebody with your talents and your expertise in the coaching and the leadership and development space, it really is our honor. And with that, would you mind just kind of telling us and our viewers a little bit about Raleigh Coaching and the Raleigh Coaching Academy and what it's all about?
I'd be glad to. Raleigh Coaching was founded in 2008 as a side hustle. And by the end of 2009, during the financial crisis, I was actually able to transition out into a full-time private business owner. It was terrifying, but it was a must for my soul and my sanity. And over the course of several years, I built my clientele, and it was just a one-woman show at that point. And then we are the coaching profession is governed by an organization called the International Coaching Federation. And so to have a legitimate coaching credential, you get trained and certified through that governing body. And so I did a lot of volunteering at our local chapter. And before I knew it, I was thrust into the world of not just coaching, but educating around coaching. And one of the things that I realized relatively quickly was that the model that I had learned to coach with at NC State was more or less only reaching a certain level of transformation. In other words, we were coaching to the goal and not the leader. And so at that point, I decided, well, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself, that sort of thing. And so I created my own coaching model, which evidently is amazing. People seem to love it. And believe it or not, it actually lends itself to the proficiency markers of the core competencies of the governing body at the highest level of competency. So little did I know that I would be creating a coaching model that would force people to be coaching at like the Juilliard level right out of the gate. So it's been phenomenal. I still wake up every morning and don't believe that this is my life. I was fortunate to train a lot of amazing people who then decided they wanted to stick around and join my faculty and my leadership team. So every single person on my staff has been trained by me, and I trust them implicitly. And so through the Raleigh Coaching Academy expansion, we had all these amazingly trained coaches. And I thought, well, what better way to grow the business than to give the graduates of the program an opportunity to work for us as subcontractors. And so over the last 5 years, we've expanded our coaching and training and development and facilitation with mostly mid to large companies and occasionally a small business. And in that time, with the scalability of the business itself, I've had to scale as a leader. And so I have my own coaches and experts that I turn to when I'm freaking out and overcome by imposter syndrome. And and really figuring out that I don't have to do it alone. Like I can have somebody come and pick up the things that I'm really not so good at, or that I could do, but it's not my area of genius. And one of those things is law and finance and accounting and IT and all the things that businesses just need to function, but that can sometimes be our undoing, and a ridiculous waste of time and money, because time is money, if we try to do everything ourselves. And so I just want to give a shout out to you, Michael, and Jennifer, and all the amazing people at NC Planning, because not only were we so fortunate to be introduced, through Lauren, but as you know, you've introduced us to several other partners in the space of CPA and IT and all of those things, um, because we trust you, and you really have to trust the people that are supporting your company. And so I just want to thank you for that.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure to work with you and your company, and to see the growth that you've gone through. As you note, this is sort of began as a side hustle, right? And then grew into kind of a full time. And now here you are as CEO of, a organization, I would say a multifaceted organization with, the line of coaching and the line of then coaching academy, basically the development of future coaches. And I just think it's a really cool model, and similar, right, to how we kind of view things with our team at NC Planning. We constantly talk about a team approach, and that's internal with our teams, whether it's on corporate or on estate planning side. But then working with that business owner or with that family, we look at ourselves, as I think Raleigh Coaching does as well, as we're one of those advisory roles that helps surround you as a business owner with your kind of team or council of advisors. And exactly to your point, that really lends itself to allow the business owner, the one who is the genius, right, in coaching and development and leadership and all of these sort of soft skills that are really needed as employees elevate to key employees, elevate to directors or C-suite or whatnot, to make sure that, I think I've heard you say it before, that there is sort of lockstep growth with our team members as we scale as a company. So, it's a pleasure for me to do what we do in working as an advisor, and a member in a seat around that table of professionals or advisors to business owners. And one of the things like that we do often talk about with various colleagues in the space or clients is just that in that kind of growth space, when you've taken a company from concept to startup, and then you begin operating and you start to expand, you start to grow, that's where a lot of pain points come in. And I was just kind of wondering if you might share with us a little bit about your thoughts or what you see in that. How do you scale appropriately with your team as your organization begins to grow, and kind of maybe a quick hit on, yeah, these are like top 3 things that we look at or think might need to be done.
Okay, I love that question. And I've got a lot of answers to
All
it.
right.
Uh, let's see. Well, in terms of how to scale in the context of the business, and then of course the mindset of the business owner,
Mm-hmm.
is if I look back on the last 13 years, what I realize is that you have to be committed to taking a series of leaps of faith. And what I mean by that is you just have to make a decision and trust that it's the right decision. And that even if it's not, it's going to benefit you, because you're going to learn a valuable lesson from it. And so some of the valuable lessons that I learned through the years were how to find the right people to surround yourself with, how to create that win-win of time and energy and commitment while not putting, money where you can't put money, right? And so a lot of the growth of my business, which is still blows my mind, was people wanting to give of their time freely with no compensation, because what they were getting was the ability to work with me and develop as a coach and develop as a leader. And so there was a lot of mentorship that took place as part of those arrangements. But then as time went on, I needed to put money where my mouth was, um, and negotiate some suitable financial arrangements and agreements with people. And I have a tendency to err on the side of generosity. And so that was another big lesson for me in terms of, okay, Kathleen, like, you can be generous, but you also have to, keep the business afoot. And so that's where, like I said before, bringing in the experts who can work with me to develop a budget and have a master's in business administration and all of the things that I've, believe it or not, done really well at, without having a formal education in business, but having that added kind of backup to say, hold on, Kathleen, like, let's really think about this. Fast forward a year from now,
Right.
what's this going to mean for the business? And so setting those precedents that over time, you kind of have to, like, do it right the first time.
Yeah, I think, we talk about these in a similar vein a lot with business owners. It is what I heard you say on the front end there about the contacts in the space and sort of assembling your team of advisors or assembling your team of peers and seeing who can help you pull in the right direction to get where you need to be, and whether that's a mentor or a guide or a teammate or an advisor. I kind of categorize that in my mind as, relationship and team building and finding, your tribe, your people who are going to help you get there. And then secondly, I heard you say something there which, kind of made me put a little bit of a sticky note on it, which is, invest in yourself, invest in your company, and whether that's taking that leap of faith that you talk about as a business owner, or making the strategic financial investment, or investing the time in what you're doing to kind of build the network and build the team of coaches, et cetera. It always is something that I think is hard to see in the moment and on the front end, but then down the road when it pays dividends and you can kind of trace it back and say, oh, that's where that growth happened. It happened there. Had I not, taken the time to work with that person or think about it, I don't know if I would have grown to this level. So sometimes it is in hindsight that we say, yeah, it's 2020 or whatnot. But I think there are some things that I always like to kind of tag and flag and say these are items that we can, as a team, right, come together to shore up and look at based on where we are and where we want to get to in sort of a business planning exercise, right? And going through and talking about, we've done it this way so long and it has worked and that's great, but as you grow, this could become a challenge. And so let's identify that, put it on a to do or a task, and then resolve. And whether that's going from, sort of handshake coaching arrangements to more formalized contractual type of coaching arrangements, or whether it's, hey, we're now expanding the team and hiring on, and what are our options there? Should we hire as far as a W-2 relationship, or maybe somebody part-time who's fractional outside, more of like a 1099? All of those kind of things that come up through the growth process can be, I think, plotted and planned for. And I think you bring up some great points about just the kind of, as we used to say, like the chutzpah or whatnot that you need as a business owner to have that faith in yourself and in your team. And I really liked your point about, even if it doesn't work out, right, there's benefit to be gained in the learning process from what you've went through.
Yeah.
So that's
And I'll add to that anytime I've taken a calculated leap of faith in terms of uh, like a financial investment per se,
Hmm.
whether it's, signing on to the lease at our office in downtown Raleigh and then signing on to another lease in an even bigger space, a block over. Uh, Believe it or not, when I've made those leaps of faith, the money has a way of showing up. And it's so, like, you can call it God or the universe, but every single time I've taken that kind of a risk, the money has shown up. And going back to what you said a minute ago about we've always done it this way and all that kind of stuff, well, I have to laugh at myself because for the longest time, well, for 7 years roughly, I had insisted that my coaching certification training could only be delivered in person, that virtual training was, not the same thing, and you weren't going to get the same experience, yada, yada. Well, then the pandemic happened, and I didn't have a choice anymore. I had to offer this program virtually. And what we figured out pretty quickly is that, yes, it works. And it works really well. And because we're all invested in creating that same connected, intimate, vulnerable sharing and transformational experience, that's how it happens, right? Because everybody wants to act as if we're face to face. And so for 2020, having just done my taxes yesterday, we actually saw an increase in our revenue, and had our biggest year to date,
That's
because
fantastic.
we just had to do what we had to do.
And I think that's, such a great story. We hear so many things about the pandemic and about COVID-19, and sort of the big sort of buzzword has been, pivot. How have you pivoted? How have you been able to pivot your business? And I think that goes from, curbside takeout of some restaurants. And at some point, I think they're like having, alcoholic beverages go along with it. It was like, that's an interesting pivot. But to hear a success story like that, and really interesting on that, sort of like how you've accelerated from a place where you thought, well, could we do virtual coaching? Is there a platform? Does it make sense? No, let's keep doing it face to face, to then being put in the position where you were forced to. And now you've made that pivot. Can I ask, do you think that that's a model that you will keep going forward, the virtual option, as opposed to reverting back to full time in person?
Well, okay, so there's a market for both. And
Okay.
just to clarify something you just said, we've always done coaching virtually. It's the certification that we weren't doing virtually.
Gotcha.
And so, given the fact that this program is globally accredited by the governing body that I mentioned before,
Mhm.
we were fortunate enough to have a lot of local people, and then people fly in from around the country to Raleigh to train here. But we lost out on a lot of people who couldn't travel or weren't willing to travel from other countries and other parts of the United States. And so, believe it or not, there's been a few people late last year and early this year who have been pushing me, like, are you going to have another in-person cohort this year? Like, when everybody's vaccinated, is it going to be in person? And I'm like, I can't answer that question yet. So there's a desire for the in-person training, but yes, absolutely, we will be offering both, as in the future, um, as time goes on.
That's great. And if I can ask you one follow-up question, if I'm a business owner, right, and I'm thinking about, I've got employees, maybe they're elevating to key employee status, or they're growing in roles and responsibilities, and I'm considering kind of like what to do in a way to sort of help them, foster development. What in kind of a nutshell can you say about the value that Raleigh Coaching and like a coaching and leadership program brings to the table for an organization? I think I know the answer to it, but I want to hear it from the source. I want to hear what value there, because I think there's tremendous value, but I just wanted to hear in your words, kind of what you would say.
Well, thank you. To answer that question, I will describe to you the model of
Okay.
how we coach. And so, as I said before, we're not coaching to the topic or the function of the person or the doing of the person. We're actually coaching to what we call their identity story. And so, what people don't realize is that the way in which we show up in our work is 100% a result of what we think in our mind about who we are. That kind of cocktail of things that we know we do well, limiting beliefs, fears, the unknown, all of that. And so the coaching that we do really meets the person where they are, helps them to identify where they've been successful up until that point. What are the qualities that they possess that have created that success for them? How they can continue to capitalize on those qualities that maybe they haven't really had somebody hold up the mirror for them to see either in a long time or ever. and and then add to that list of qualities, well, what are your aspirational qualities? What would be the type of leadership traits that you would have to embody in order to take that next level of leadership on and know that that you can do it. And so that's the magic of this kind of coaching. It's really goes almost to a cellular level to get people energetically convinced that they're capable.
That is great stuff. I think what I take away there is that, you know, regardless of your organization's size or the length of time you've been in business, the model, et cetera, it does come back to your people, and to invest in your people to be making, whether it's a better product or a better service that you're delivering for your organization, I think is something that is at least a part of the recipe for a successful business. So with that, I know we get a lot of questions and follow-up to videos when we publish these. And I wanted, if it's all right with you, Kathleen, folks might ask, hey, how do I get in touch with Raleigh Coaching and Kathleen? And if it's okay with you, I'll just share my screen and provide some contact information here for Kathleen O'Grady, CEO of Raleigh Coaching and Raleigh Coaching Academy. Are you able to see my screen there, Kathleen?
Yes, and just so, well, it's going to show my face when I'm talking, so I won't talk in a minute. But my email address directly is kathleen@raleighcoaching.com. So KATHLEEN, if you want to get to me directly.
Perfect. Other than that, there's the phone number there, 919-322-8344, physical address, and an alternate email address. And I will go ahead and stop the share now. And Kathleen, always a pleasure to see you, to speak with you. Look forward to seeing you again in person. Thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thank you, Michael. It
All
was
right.
a pleasure.
And everybody else tuning in, from all of us at NC Planning, thank you for joining, and we'll talk with you again soon.